This is Headshot Happy Hour. I'm Shondell Thomas. Headshot Happy Hour is my contribution to society. Society. My contribution to community. Let's say that. Community affects society. I designed Headshot Happy Hour during the pandemic when people couldn't get out, network, and share their stories. So this was a platform that was just amazing, and I felt like, as opposed to just giving it to a client and them using it or not, this information that the masses should hear, things that impact the community, things that inspire and uplift. Rosemary Oglesby-Henry
Yeah.
is just that. So you recently put out a post that talked about basically your resiliency, and I mean it summarized, without you even saying what you had been through. It summarized what you had overcame, and I had said, I had made a caption up under it that said, if resilience was a person, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel about you. Like anytime we interact over the years, it has always been uplifting, empowering. You've always encouraged me. Yo, it's a grant out there for you. It's a grant out there for that. It's
Did
a
I?
business. Yeah, you
Oh
did, and
man.
I appreciate that. I remember that. So, who is Rosemary, and more importantly, um, who was Rosemary, and who is Rosemary now?
Wow, like loaded question because who was Rosemary? Rosemary was a postal worker
Mm,
for what, like 16 or 17 years. Rosemary is a daughter, a sister. I'm a great auntie. I was an entrepreneur from a long time ago. I ran a landscaping company. Rosemary is a daughter, the youngest of four. Um, Rosemary was a wife, a volunteer, a philanthropist. Who is Rosemary now? Rosemary is an author
mm,
of two books that I recently released in November of 2022. Rosemary is the CEO and founder of the Rosemary's Babies Company, which is a nonprofit organization out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Of course, we're sitting here,
nice.
that supports teen parents
Mm-hmm.
and families between the ages of 9 and 19. Rosemary is a philanthropist, so I give my time, talent, and treasures outside of my own giving. And I'm a board member. I'm a child fearing woman of God. I'm a person that believes that kindness costs you nothing, and every day we should wake up and be kind.
Mm, mm. What part? That's a lot. That's a
Well,
lot.
I mean, it's, I don't think that you're just one thing. I don't think that we are, ultimately I could say who is Rosemary,
Mm-hmm.
a person that was born to ensure that we uplift other people. So if you just take all of that and put it all together, I'm a person that's here to ensure that I I gain everything and give it all away before I leave this earth.
That's dope. That's dope. That's dope. So, what part of your journey prompted you to be on this journey for helping teen parents? And I mean, I preface parents
Yeah.
because you not only help the young ladies, but you also help the male teen parents as well.
Yeah.
What part of your journey?
Yeah. So I became a teen mom. I got pregnant when I was 16. Straight A student. I had scholarships for school. I just, I had a plan. I was like, the textbooks told me in order to get out of the situation that I'm in, out of the hood,
Mm-hmm.
I got to get an education or I got to go in the military. That's what we were told back in
Yeah.
the day. And that's why without me saying my age. But that's what I knew. But trauma hit, life hit, you know, and I was lost. You know, when your whole structure comes unraveled, it was already shaky. You know, your family structure already shaky, but when it comes unraveled, you begin to listen to your friends. You begin to look into outlets, you know, that you wouldn't normally do. So like I started drinking, straight A student nerd out here getting drunk. I'm hanging out, and you know, I just was looking for love that I didn't think that I was getting. I was looking for just some type of connection, a way to breathe, and you know, whatever it was, I made a choice to have sex. I didn't think a baby was gonna come from it, and here I was pregnant. You know, from the point of that I, you know, peed on that stick and it started changing color, you're forced to make a choice.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is there's only a few choices you can make. I'm about to be a mom as a kid. I can place my child for adoption, but I would have to walk around with this baby for months. What if I get attached? What if I can't let her go? What if the baby ends up in a worse situation? What if they come back and I don't know what to say? Or there's an abortion and there's an emotional thing that comes with that too. Is it right by God? Is it whatever? So our choices as women are hard.
Yeah.
And so my first adult decision at 16 was, I got to make this choice. What do I do? And overnight, I was like, okay, you know, my mom was like, she didn't believe in those other options. And as a teen, it's really your choice, but it's not. Because if I wanted an abortion, if I wanted an adoption, my mother would have to sign for that. And my mother was very strong in her ethics and beliefs. And so, you know, overall, I was pregnant with this baby that I didn't know if I wanted or not. I didn't know who I was. And it was a lot. And I just felt like there was no place for me to go. There was nobody that I could talk to that understood what I was going through. You know, I grew up in a time where what happens in this house stays in this house, where people weren't as open to share their stories. You know, I didn't learn until I was later in life when I was grown that my mother was a teen parent, that my grandmother and all of these people had experienced and walked through what I had walked through, but they were not a generation of sharing their story and their experiences and helping you to get through that. And so that's where it all started. I did have a baby. I did make a choice, but don't make life harder for me. Help me.
Yeah, for sure.
Help me. And there was a point where I remember I was living in my very first apartment. You know, for a while I was housing insecure with my baby, but when I got my very first apartment, it was an income-based housing, and my baby was just crying. She was just crying, and I didn't know what to do, and I was crying with her, and I was just like, I want my mom. I want somebody to help me. And if at any point I could have called somebody and they picked up the phone and just told me everything is going to be okay, that every mother feels like they're not enough. Every mother feels this way, but there was nothing. And so years later, after I went back to school, after I experienced life, after I raised my own kids and got my bachelor's degree, it took me almost 8 years just to get my bachelor's degree of going to school, stopping, working, going to school. And then I went on to get my master's degree and actually built the program while I was enrolled in my master's degree.
Oh, dope.
And, you know,
so was it a part of your?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it was my project for my master's.
Yeah, what
my
better way to
project.
get through
Yeah, and you know, the whole time it was like, I want to show my daughter specifically. That's what I ended up having. My daughter, her name is Yaliyah. It means God lives within you. I wanted to show her that no matter how much you might get, you might move away from your plans, or how you may not be able to see your goals sometimes because it gets cloudy. Don't stop. Continue to move forward. Continue to keep looking up. The bachelor's degree that I got was for her. But when I got the master's degree, it was so I could build Rosemary's Babies Company.
Nice.
So I could have the knowledge and ability so that when people and these teen parents looked at our board, looked at me, and said, if she can do it, I know that I can. And even if she can do it, if she just has faith in me, if she just has belief in me. And that's what this organization is about, a no judgment zone where we just believe that everything's going to be okay. We're not saying it's going to be easy, but it's going to be okay.
That's dope. That's dope. Let me ask you something. So just going back to talking about the psyche of a young person, 16-year-old, sometimes even younger than that, unfortunately. But even an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, how many of them? What is the psyche behind a young 16-year-old child that has become impregnated? Like, what are some of the conversations? What is some of the like, what is, I don't know how to frame that question. Like,
So I guess it's like when they walk through our doors, the common things that I hear. I'm scared. I'm alone. Why won't anybody help me? Why are they judging me? This is hard. I want to be a good mother, but there's nobody to teach me. Why are people, when there was recently a girl who ended up in the foster care system. She was just trying to get help after she was kicked out of her home, and she ended up in the foster care system, and they were trying to take her baby, and her baby was 2 months old, and she was 16, and I think like that's one of what she said to me will always stay embedded in my head, because she said, they haven't given me enough time to be a good mother. I mean,
they didn't even give me a chance.
They haven't even given me a chance. And so it's a common thread with anybody, and more importantly, even for the woman that is in her 30s is having her first child. Am I going to be enough? Wow. Am I going to do the right thing? Wow. I mean, you're a father. Am I enough? Did I do the right thing? Did I make the right choice? Mm-hmm. What if they fail? Mm-hmm. And if they fail, I fail. Mm-hmm. Because as parents, we measure our success by how we raise our children and what we put into them.
Damn. You just said something. You just said a lot. You just said a lot. So I've never said this on camera, and people will have to buy the book in order to get the full story. But there was a period of time where I had to take care of my kids on my own, older. And when the initial circumstance happened that made the that brought about the situation, those were some of the thoughts that I had. It was, I mean, you know you're a good person, you know you're a good dad, you know that you're responsible, but will there be resources if I need them? You know what I mean? Am I enough? Am I going to be able to, be that support system for a teenage daughter? You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, even though I had a support system around me, my mind was, it's on me.
It's on you.
You know what I mean? So, so I could imagine. I said all that to say, I could imagine how it is for, a young mother, who already is kind of lacking in certain resources or whatnot, or support.
Yeah. So, and we serve kids as young as 9.
Okay.
And, those are the hardest conversations to have when, somebody calls you and they're like, we got a 9-year-old that's pregnant.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? It's a lot. And I think that as a community, as people, we need to have empathy. Mm-hmm. Overall, we need to have empathy. I'm not saying feel sorry for these kids, but I'm saying don't put up additional barriers for them, because they're already taking it in school. Like, one of my hardest plights as a teen was, all my friends were having sex, but I'm the one that has to walk around with the stamp. They can see that I did it. You just didn't get caught up. But I'm the one that's being judged. I'm the one that has to take that mark. I'm having to take it at home. I'm having to take it at school. It's showing in looks that people give me. Even now, I'm in my 40s, and my daughter is 26. Okay. But when we're out together and people are like, oh, that's your sister, or that's your friend. Yeah. I get this look when I'm like, no, that's my daughter. That's not my boyfriend. That's my son, who's now 22. And it's still that uncomfortable feeling. Yeah. Even though I'm no longer a teen mom, even though I'm supposed to be successful, there's still that emotion that comes with embarrassment. Yeah. But I'm trying to change those conversations too with this organization for people to be okay with your past, to be okay with your story. This is who I was, but this is not who I am now.
Yeah.
This is not who I am today.
I feel that there would be some type of vindication or some type of empowerment after a certain period of time. Like right now, you being, you know, in your 40s and your daughter half your age, looking at that journey and seeing that you are together, seeing that, you know, you got all your mental faculties, you know what I mean? You live in life.
Yeah.
You made it through that. Basically, you made it through that battle. You made it through that journey. It has to be some type of relief or some type of feeling of, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I overcame.
You know, I think, like, I have a lot of conversations with women, especially that were young parents, and it takes a lot to get you to that point of acceptance of, I was a good mother.
Does it?
You know, like, it wasn't until I was, gosh, like a few years ago that I actually looked in the mirror and was like, you were a good mother. Even though my daughter had went to college, my son had graduated from high school, I reached the American dream. And I wrote a book, of course, The Rose Who Blossomed Through the Concrete, Consequence versus Choice, unsolicited plug. But in the book,
we're going to solicit that.
Yeah, but in the book, I talked about it, like, coming to terms of what it meant to be a good parent. And even though I had done all of these things, I couldn't see it because I'm sitting in it. The same with Rosemary's Babies Company. I can't see how everybody sees me. I couldn't see how I was as a mother. I couldn't see how I was impacting people and communities and teen parents because I'm sitting in it. And all I could see was I wasn't enough. And so now I try to tell people, celebrate those wins.
Yeah, for sure.
Own it. And if you are a mother out here and you raised a child, I want people to stop saying, I did the best that I could. I want you to look in the mirror and be like, I was a good parent.
Yeah.
I was a good parent.
And I think that's the point. You articulated that so well. I couldn't get it out. But I think that's it. It's something to be, that journey is something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Because we can sum up 26 years in an hour, but you live 26 years. So think about all of the nights and the days and when you were unsure or, I mean, things happen.
Yeah. And just having the, you know, I always, above anything else, when I started writing my book, I wrote my book after I closed on this property that we just got for homeless parents. And I wrote we closed on a Monday and I started writing my book on like a Thursday and finished that next Thursday, right? So I wrote my book in like 7 days. And the ultimate message of it was, but God, but faith. Nobody was in those rooms when I cried behind closed doors.
That's what I'm saying.
When nobody was in those rooms when I was in showers because I didn't want my kids to know that I was crying, or I went to the store. Mommy got to go to the store real quick. When I didn't feel like it was enough. When I was so tired, like, I look back sometimes and I look back and I'm like, how did I accomplish all of that? Like, now I'm older and I'm like, oh, it make me tired. You know, 2 jobs at times, coming home, making sure you did your homework. Not only 2 jobs, I'm going to school at nights. I remember at one point I worked at the post office, so I worked night shifts. So I was at work like 9 to like 6 in the morning. I would get off from work, get home, take the kids to school so I could see them, then go back to work because I worked 8 to 5, and I would sleep in my car in the parking lot so I could get ready for work. And then on lunch break, I would go sleep in my car for 30 minutes, get off, help the kids with their homework, cook them dinner, lay down for 2 hours. And I did that for years. Yeah. You know, and I'm like running on that 4 hours, but it was like, it's worth it. Is the sacrifice worth the reward? Absolutely. Yeah. And even though now sometimes my kids might say, well, she wasn't home. Yeah. I'm able to look them back in the eye and say, I wasn't in the streets. I wasn't in the club. I wasn't, you might have got Subway for breakfast sometimes because that's what mom had to pick up. But the sacrifice was worth the reward because you didn't have to live how I lived. You didn't have to live in those neighborhoods. You didn't have to experience life how I experienced it. And I'm okay with you feeling she wasn't there enough. I'm okay with that, because as long as you have a belief that you are more than enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And then not only that, the sacrifices that you made ensured that they had the type of lifestyle that they didn't have to be fearful. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't like comparing my life or my situation with anybody else's. So a lot of times I don't bring up my situation. But I too grew up with my mom. We raised each other, basically. So mom was 16, same type of story. And I remember her having certain jobs where I would go to work and I would be up under the counter, primarily, in the 70s, early 80s. She worked at a place called King Quick in Carthage. It's a small town in Cincinnati, in the Cincinnati area. But I would go to work with her almost every night. I had my blanket, I had my pillow. She would have me some donuts and some juice, right? Wasn't no Game Boys or tablets or nothing back then. You played with whatever you could, but you had to be quiet. I remember those times. I remember being babysat by like total strangers who became family. I remember some of the stories. I got some of my best education from having to fend for myself or having to get used to new environments often. I feel like I'm a chameleon in a lot of situations because of those situations. Situations that you had to be quiet because you can't be seen or heard. Situations where you had to speak up for yourself, protect yourself. Situations where you had to be, what's the word I'm looking for? You had to be understanding of certain environments, certain situations. That made me well-rounded. And that I was able to pass on to my kids in any relationship that I'm in. Had I not had that, I don't know how straight-laced I probably would be.
I think too, like sometimes as adults, we look at situations from one side. And, a lot of my adult life, I've been practicing forgiveness because I didn't understand what my mother went through and what her grandmother went through and what my father went through, and forgiving him and not being so angry, because by forgiving him, I'm not holding on to that trauma. But it wasn't until I sat on the outskirts of that, and even hearing what you're saying. Imagine the mindset that your mother had to be in working. What if somebody see him, they gonna take him? But I want to keep my child. This is the only way. Why can't family help me? Why can't somebody help me? But she knew that nobody could, or the help wasn't available. So this is my only option. And for somebody that might be listening, they're like, that's a shame. She should have had her child taken. But what if it was you? What if it was you and that was the only outlet you knew this was temporary? This was temporary because, I made a choice and I didn't, maybe my life ain't the best and I ain't the richest, but I'm doing the best that I can. And I think that when I looked back over, again, some of the situations that, I blame my mother for, and I had to go back and apologize to my mom. I'm sorry that I thought this because I couldn't see it. But it's the sacrifices that mothers make. It's the maternal sacrifice. It's the maternal sacrifice that fathers make. Because I know you had to make some sacrifices to raise both of your kids. We all as parents have to make those sacrifices. We make them in business. We make them in life. There were times that I would leave work and go to my daughter's school, and I would only go in enough time to see her perform. And each time I'm in the front row, I'm whatever, and I would leave, and she would come home and be like, well, you didn't get to see the rest of the show, but she didn't understand that when I left, I was on break, and I had to get back, and when I went back, I was late, and now I'm almost on suspension, and kids don't know because we shield them from so much. And I think as adults, we're holding on to trauma because of our perception of how we see things. But on the other side of that, there's a whole nother perception and a whole nother thing and set of things that we had to deal with. We're sorry that it didn't look the way you wanted it to. But I had to do this, and it's difficult. And for those that are having a difficult time moving past some of these things, you've got to heal. You got to heal. And I don't think people, like I said, I don't think people look at it like that. Because, you know, I had to tell that to our daughter, like, girl, I would come see your shows on lunch.
Yeah, real talk.
I'm already working 16 hours, running on 3 hours sleep. But you only saw that my mama was here for 5 minutes. But you don't know what it took for me to get there for just that 5 minutes to show you that I was here. Yeah. You wanted to join the band, so I had to work a second job, or I had to do, you know, whatever. And so, you know, the same thing goes for when we're building, you know, from when I built Rosemary's Babies Company, when I built this organization, the sacrifices that came with it. Like, I know you saw my post, and it was like something like I went from $0 to $2 million project.
I was gonna bring that up. Yes.
Yeah, like, you know, again, starting a project. I graduated with this Rosemary's Babies Company. You know, an organization named after a scary movie from the 70s where people used to pick on me or whatever.
Hold on, what?
Yeah, you ain't never seen the movie Rosemary's Baby?
I have, but I didn't put the. So.
Yes. So when I was in high school, you know, that movie came out, and like there's not that many black Rosemarys running around.
No, it's not.
And you know, like people didn't know I was named after my grandmother and my great aunt from, you know, but I was tortured. So when I had a baby, they're like, oh, she probably got a devil's baby, you know. So to take something that was so horrific, and turn it into something great. You know, because even when I started this organization, people were like, oh my God, you're going to name your company after that movie. And I'm like, yeah, I am. You know, marketing 101, you'll remember it. It's funny now because none of these teens know that movie. Okay. But I always know because they'll come in and they're like, Miss Rosemary, and they'll be shaking their head. They're like, I seen your movie on Netflix. Really? But, you know, it's fun, and, you know, it's funny. And even today, people will, you know, will inbox me and be like, how could you name your company after this? Last year, we got a partnership with the NFL. Blessing. Amen. Thank you. Something I was never expecting out of left field. Samaje P. Ryan, who just left Cincinnati, his mother was a teen parent, and when he came, he found Rosemary's Babies Company, had been volunteering, put our name on his cleats, and we ended up partnering with the NFL, and I felt so blessed. And we ended up, the day that the campaign happened, we ended up with like almost 8,000 people hitting our website. And a lot of the comments were, why would you name your organization this? But you don't understand the story that it impacts, and the fact that my name is Rosemary. Yeah, real talk. And honestly,
you
know
that's what
like, it's Rosemary.
I didn't ask the question. I didn't even draft that question because I figured that's what it was.
Yeah, like my name is Rosemary, and ultimately these are my babies. Yeah. They're not clients. They're not, you know, I don't just see them as teen parents. They're my babies. Yeah. I love each and every one of them. Like, people want to know what's the secret sauce. It's love. That's dope. That's the secret sauce.
That's dope.
It's love. When I look at them, I see me. I see light in them. I see the futures that they could have. I see the pain that they're going through, but they try to keep smiles on their faces for their babies, because I know it, because I've walked through it, and I'm them. So when people talk about them, when people don't want to support, when people want to judge, you're judging me.
Wow. So in that post that you just referenced, the end, it said, never allow your barriers to break. You said, never allow your barriers to break you. Use them for your breakthrough. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, it's a quote that I came up with. I live by certain quotes, you know, and that's one of them. Never allow your barriers to break you. Point blank, we all will go through something. You just told of some of the barriers that you went through as a parent, as a son, you know, as an employee, whatever that is, we're all going to go through something, and we can either let those barriers break us down and we move to drugs, we move to a vice, we move to something that is not going to get us to where we want to go. Yeah. It's not going to get us towards the goal. It's not going to help us overcome. It's not going to help us move forward. It's not going to help elevate us. It's not going to help us get more a higher purpose and closer to God. It's just not. You're allowing those barriers to break you down. And a lot of times, if you look back, you'll see plenty of moments where barriers you thought were going to break you, they don't. Use it as fuel. I always say, like, take all of that. When I get angry, I'm going to take all of that anger. I'm going to take all of those barriers. I'm going to take everything, and I'm going to create a masterpiece. I'm going to take every person that said, Rose ain't going to be nothing. Her daughter going to be a teen parent. She ain't going to get this building. She can't raise $1 million in 6 months. She can't. And I said, watch me. Watch me. Watch me create this masterpiece. Watch me take every barrier that y'all continue to set up and watch me bust through the concrete. Watch me bust through life. And I'm not doing it. You start out doing it because people told you that you couldn't. Then I started, like, on my path, people told me I couldn't. So I started, I'm going to prove them wrong. Then it became about my kids. Now, it's not about anything but God. It's not anything but about the journey. It's not anything but about the breakthrough, about the coming. It's not anything about, it's more about how these kids will elevate life, how they'll transition, how they'll change their outlook, how they'll change their trajectory. It's no longer about me. It's no longer about the ones that said that we couldn't. It's no longer about this. It's no longer about the doubter. It's about the purpose. And the purpose is the breakthrough. The purpose is changing the mindset of communities and the state and just people that don't believe that these teens should be able to raise their children in safe and healthy environments because they don't deserve them. It's about people that don't see a light in a child because you're trying to blow that light out by putting up continuous barriers in front of them. We're going to bust them down, and we're going to tell those teens, don't you let them break you.
That's dope. So you coach a lot about mindset then?
Yes.
Mindset is, it appears to me that it's the centerpiece of your mission and what you do. I mean, even though it's not written in it, but mindset is everything. But mindset is everything anyway.
I think it's mindset. Well, overall, our mission at Rosemary's Babies Company is to help teen parents master the concepts of self-leadership to leave a legacy. So what is mastering self-leadership? It's how you lead who? Yourself. And I didn't know that every time I told myself when I got up in the morning, you better get up, you got to go to work, you got stuff to do, that was self-motivation. I didn't know that every time I told myself, you're strong, stop crying, you can make it, that was self-motivation. I didn't know any of that stuff till I actually went to college, and they were like, and I was like, all this stuff that I was doing, it can be taught. My very first day of college, they were like, are leaders born or are they made? They're both.
Yeah. They're born and they're refined.
Exactly. So we can teach teens, parents, how to master self-leadership and lead themselves. They can lead others. They can lead their families. And we can give them the tools that they need in order to motivate themselves. I'm just a beacon. I'm just a person on the way to help you with some of those tools and resources.
You're a reminder that you are great. You're a reminder to them that they are great.
And once they get it, you start changing generations because then you're feeding that light into other people. You're not letting those barriers break you. You're using them. And with that comes what? Legacy. And legacy is how you live today and what you leave behind.
That's dope. That's dope. I actually had a question of what is legacy to you.
And
so since you
too, legacy is how you live and what you leave behind. For me, this is every day that Rosemary's Babies Company is able to open their doors, and we started from nothing. I started from a dream, took it to a vision, to a goal, to what it is now, and we're not done. But it's my legacy. It's how I'm living my life every day. I wake up every day being kind. I want to be kind to one person a day. That's my whole goal. I'm going to be kind to one person today. The secret of living is giving. And like I said, I want to gain it all. I want to give it all away. I want my legacy to be that she was a light, that she was the rose who broke through the concrete and was a light to so many. And I don't want to be remembered as oh, whatever, I want to be remembered that she was a light because she wanted you to be a light. It's not about me. I want it to always be about them.
Real talk. Real talk. Let me ask you something. How do you measure your success?
How do I measure success?
You know, because we all have this ideal or ideology of what success is and whether or not we making an impact. How do you measure that?
Well, for Rosemary's Babies Company, of course, we have measures that we have. But for Rosemary personally, I am very bad at measuring success because sometimes I'll think that I haven't gotten there and I've missed the mark. But overall, what I'll say is this. I'll set a BHAG that is so huge, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? That is so huge that no matter whether I reach it or not, I'm successful because there's so many wins underneath that trying to get there. There's so many things that I learned trying to get there. So every day that I get up and I'm being kind, that's a success.
Real talk.
Because I'm counting the small ones, I'm counting the big ones, I'm counting the ones that other people are like, oh, she failed. Did I? Because you don't even know what the goal was. Just doing it. Not letting fear stop me, not letting the barrier stop me. And a lot of time it's the fear that is the barrier.
It is. That's the major barrier. I mean, I have it. I have it with Headshot Happy Hour.
I'm glad you're doing it. So.
I thank you for being glad that I'm doing it. I'm grateful every day that I have the mind to do it. I'm thankful every day that like I'm doing it like unselfishly. Because I feel like everybody's story is a gift and a gem. Like I get paid from hearing your why and your motivation for what you're doing. Like that's money to me. I have a shirt that I normally wear. It's experience is the new currency. I want to experience every day that I wake up. And Headshot Happy Hour, Shondell Thomas Photography, the camera, everything helps me to experience. So I submerge myself in these conversations. I'm just a natural curious person anyway. So, that's a good answer for being able to measure your success. So like, dang, every step, like I woke up this morning, I got up, success.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I had a thought in my mind and I jotted that idea down.
Success.
Yeah.
Like,
there's so much we take for granted.
And you're winning because we as a society are thought to measure success in dollars.
Yep.
You know, in currency and things.
Yep.
And, you know, even for me, people like, you know, we're trying to get this first project open, Holloway House and Resource Center. And before we even get the first one done, people are like, I can see an east, a west. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, and I'm not going to let you put your fantasy of what you see on me.
Yeah, real talk.
That's not success for me. You know, and the thing is, like, nobody really knows because what I want or what God has put on my heart is between me and God.
Real talk. Yeah.
You know, it's not gonna be in a Facebook post.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be in a.
You'll know when I release it.
You'll know when it's released.
That's dope. So let's shift the gears a little bit. You often mention this new facility. I want to talk about this new facility. So the Holloway House.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Holloway House and Resource Center. In 2020, when COVID hit, everybody remember COVID. When COVID hit, we learned that 35% of the teens that we were serving were homeless.
Okay.
You know, Cincinnati has a lot of hidden homeless.
Yeah.
Every city does. And a lot of these teens aren't going to tell, of course, that they're homeless because they'll end up in social services and so will their baby. That's a whole nother podcast. And so we were 3 years old at the time. And I'm just like, this is not our issue. Let's go to, you know, let's do what we do best and we're going to go partner with somebody to do the rest.
Yeah.
And couldn't find anybody that was doing the work. And what we learned were there were no facilities in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana that if you were under the age of 18 and you had custody of your baby and were, ended up homeless or were ejected from your home, there was nowhere for you to go. So these teens during COVID were staying in situations that were not safe for themselves or their babies, abusive situations, just everything. And again, at the time, Rosemary's Babies Company, I believe our operational budget was somewhere around $60,000. And I'm just like, look, we barely making it, I'm not even bringing in a salary. What are you talking about? Lord, I can't open up no facility. I don't even know how to do it. And what happened was my grandmother Rose, who I love more than anything, passed away that year. And I remember my grandmother had a house on Holloway, and it was, it had like 2 bedrooms, I want to say 2 or 3. But she let anybody come to her house. And my grandmother was one of the kindest people that I knew. And I woke up in the middle of the night after she passed, and God put it on my heart, Holloway House. And the name has never left. And I grew up in Avondale. So most people don't know that. So I grew up in Avondale, and I was like, I want to do it there. And so in 2020, with a budget that we had never even expected to be able to raise money and grow in the capacity that we had, we started on this plight to buy a property through the Port Authority. And it was a very difficult process for us. The port has their criteria. Again, they have their barriers. Barriers came up from the community, from the city, from the state. There was just so much. And at every turn, what they say, don't never let your barriers break you. Use them for your breakthrough. At every turn, there was a barrier, and people saying, you're not going to do it. You're not going to make it. You're not. And what people didn't realize was, if this doesn't happen, I'm not failing me. I'm failing these kids. We're failing our community. So it's not about me. And so, it was a lot of pressure on our organization to scale. Because again, we're 3, And, the port did lay a standard for us to raise $1 million capital stack in 6 months. I had to go through business coach classes, which I am always grateful for. Cheryl Pillot Williamson. We just went through so much, and in the end, success. We purchased the Holloway House in 2022, closed, raising over $1 million capital stack.
Beautiful.
We received funds from the state of Ohio. Of $250,000, which was unheard of for a Black-led nonprofit that was really young. More importantly, this 2-year process helped me transition from this wet behind the ears girl that just had this passion to a true CEO. It helped our organization, again, scale and become more financially sustainable. It took us to a whole nother level of revenue and just responsibility in the community, where we're now able to have seats at the table to create policy, to be able to discuss policy, to be able to truly talk about changing the outlook and trajectory for teen parents in Ohio and across the nation. So I'm completely grateful to God for the process.
That is awesome. And congratulations on that. I can't say that to you too many times. Every time I see you, I'm like, congratulations. That's dope. Now, that is dope. Before you broke it down, until you broke it down, I didn't know how significant this situation is. I know it's awesome being awarded. And then when we look at the numbers, we like, yo, that's dope. $2 million, that's dope. But overcoming the processes, overcoming the obstacles, the barriers, that's where I'm really like, congratulations. But when you talk about policy, excuse me, you mentioned the process of a 16-year-old, 17-year-old child having a child. A lot of times they fall into the system. When we talk about policies, or is that one of the policies that we're looking to?
It's a gray area. They're a child, but they're a parent. So technically, their parent is responsible for them. Their parent, which is a grandparent, is not responsible for that baby. So they're caught in this gray area. If I'm 16, I can't sign contracts. I can't even go into the hospital without my mother's consent, but this is my child who needs services. I can't get daycare unless my mother is on a daycare paperwork. There are so many significant things that need to change. And while I can appreciate the government and the economy when teen pregnancy was at its highest, which was in the 90s when I got pregnant, they were able to decrease and focus on pregnancy prevention, which I am all for pregnancy prevention. Don't have no kids. Don't end up in my program. That's my goal.
Yeah.
But if you have a baby, what supportive resources are there? Rosemary's Babies Company should not be one of the only resources for teen parents in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. However, we are.
Okay.
And I'm sure there are other organizations building and coming, which it's needed, very much so.
For sure.
And we are more than happy to support those. But right now, the bigger picture is there are policies that are not on the books that support teen parents that need to be implemented yesterday.
So there's more lobbying that needs to happen around this conversation.
Yeah, and as a nonprofit organization, we have to walk lightly when it comes to policy and things like that, because nonprofits can't really activate in that space. But what we can do is advocate, educate, and partner with people who can be a voice for this population that, again, my daughter's 26, that has been overlooked. But to find out that, and I was a teen parent, 26 years later, there's no resources, there's no policies on the books, there's nothing. How did we miss? But we miss because there is no true conversation surrounding maternal health. Last year, I was flown to LA to be in a documentary short with this Dr. Jertona Maddox. The film is called Worth One Salt, so it'll be coming out nationally. And I was brought in as an expert, and it discussed the maternal health of teen parents through the medical care system. And in LA, they have a facility, St. Anne's, that has over 4,000, 5,000 people that they're serving. But again, the laws and legislation for teen parents are almost obsolete in all of these states. In all 50 states, there are less than 30 organizations that support teen parents. And there are over 350,000 babies born to teens yearly. How can 30 organizations serve 300 some odd thousand teen parents? Wow. This is an issue that is very serious. And more importantly, yes, prevention, yes, we definitely need that. But we start to move into the legislation that is now impacting women's rights. And we will see an increase in teenage pregnancy. It is undoubt. It is not no doubt that we will. Because if we don't take a look at history, we have a tendency to repeat it.
Absolutely.
And it will happen. And we need to become prepared for what is about to happen and have the supportive resources to be able to educate these young parents so that they're not expanding their families any further before their time, that we're getting them financially stable, that we're getting them into housing that doesn't put them within the, the cliff effect for Black maternal mothers, or putting them as being dependent on government resources. I'm very strong-minded about these issues. And so there's a lot more work that God has called on me to do. And it'll happen. I think my biggest fear is time. But, I'm just going to keep pushing.
All we can do is put one foot in front of the other. Work the mission. Excuse me. At some point, help will come.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite sure you've seen that over the years. It started with you doing one task, one good deed, and then somebody else coming, or you soliciting for the help. Yeah. But what was that like, though? And I know we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up, but I'm just.
It's questions like people want, and it's crazy because this might be a two-parter, but it's questions that I'm sure people want to ask. Rosemary's Babies Company has some phenomenal partners. Like at one point we were going through this process for the house. You never know who's watching you. And I want to tell entrepreneurs that you want to always be on your P's and Q's. Because again, I was at this for 3 years. I didn't know who was watching me. Yeah. So when we started going through this process to get the Holloway House, for example, I became a United Way partner my very first year, after my first year. Thank you, United Way. And they used to send us out to do these testimonials, right? And it just so happens I had done a testimonial for an organization called Diversity Construction, which is one of the largest Black-owned construction companies in Cincinnati. Well, during the middle of this conversation, the CEO of Diversity, Melvin Gravely, begins to tell me he was a teen father that had to raise his child. And I never thought that I would get an opportunity to talk to him again. And I end up like in the middle of this conversation telling him like, I'm so proud of you, but whatever. So here we are weeks or months later, and he sees me on the news trying to get this property through the port, and the community was a little bit outraged. And behind the scenes, this man like steps up and goes to the port to speak on our behalf. And then stepped in KLH, which I had met this person from somewhere else. And then steps in Moody Nolan Construction, which is the largest Black-owned construction company in the country. So here I am, a 3-year-old nonprofit, budget $60,000, and we've got some of the top tier people within this city speaking on our behalf.
That's awesome.
And vouching for, what did you call it? My resilience. Mm-hmm. And it was, and I try to say it without getting emotional, but it was so humbling. And these people and companies will never know how grateful I actually am that they gave us credibility. They were a voice for me when my voice was not strong enough. And so, you know, the ability to partner, people think is walking in a room and demanding something, but it's showing that your paperwork is in order. Your character is always the same. So when Melvin Gravely, you know, told his story about how he called people and was like, what about this girl? And they're like, she just want to help these kids. You know, to be able to walk in that same set of ethics and principles and values that I had walked in since I was a child before Rosemary's Babies Company opened its doors, and to have people see that light and see that and want to support is completely awesome. And so I will forever be grateful to BI3, Greater Cincinnati Foundation, United Way, Interact for Health, like Jamie Smith of the, you know, Business Courier, who, you know, now we see our story in there, and I'm always like excited to know how people found us, to know like that we're not only just, you know, changing the trajectory of teen parents, but putting it in the minds of people that we have to be a voice for her. We have to be a voice for this population. And I think it's awe-inspiring. You know, just recently I received an award from the Regional Chamber, Jill Meyer, for We Are Making Black History. And I'm like, you know, I'm always humbled again by these awards and things like that. But it doesn't take an award for you to change or make history. Yeah. It's those that do it silently that have the power, and it's people that have a voice even now and have positions that can help. And you can do that silently by pushing a button to share our message, by giving, by going into your company and saying, hey, support this mission. Those are ways that you can help us now. Those are ways that you can help these teens. Those are ways that you can just help any of the almost 8,000 nonprofits that are in Ohio right now.
That's dope. Like, you just... I ain't even had to ask that question or even go into that. Like, that's great. So that was gonna be my end question is like, how can we help? So where can people go if they want to directly support the organization, volunteer, or anything like that?
Yeah. So if you want to support the organization, rosemarysbabies.co. You can Google us now. We finally come up in Google. If you type in teen parent, we pop up. Nice. But rosemarysbabies.co if you want to give, volunteer, learn how shop for Holloway House so you can buy items for Holloway House, give in kind. If you want to refer, we are on every social media platform, and so you can reach us that way. If you want to buy my book, The Rose Who Blossomed Through the Concrete, Consequence versus Choice, or the companion manual, It is on Amazon and all other platforms. So I'm very excited about that. Or you can buy it through the Rosemary's Babies Company or the Petals Incorporation. So right now, we're probably one of the most accessible organizations out there. And if you can't remember any of this stuff, you can text or call us at 513-813-TEEN, TEEN, and that's 8336.
How often do you have to say these things for it to come out so fluidly?
I say it more than you know. And I'm gonna give one last tidbit for people. In 2000, I want to say it was 2018, I did something called Fast Pitch, Social Venture Partners Fast Pitch. We were the underdogs, right? And I came in second place. But what I learned is be able to tell what you do in 5 words. Then be able to tell what you do in 30 seconds. And from that 30 seconds, they'll give you, you want people to say, well, tell me more. Then they're going to give you 60 seconds. Then they're going to give you 90 seconds. Then they're going to give you 3 minutes. Because when I won Fast Pitch, I had 3 minutes to tell my story.
Really good. Thank you for that.
So 5 words and 30 seconds. So if somebody gives you 30 seconds, Shondell, tell me what you do. And you can't tell me in 30 seconds, you've already missed your moment. And it's got to be something that captures you. So our 5 words, Rosemary's Babies is a teen, parent, and family support organization. What do? We provide support for teen mothers and fathers between the ages of 9 and 19, virtually and in person. Tell me more. We advocate from everything from support transitional housing to wellness, education, financial resources, and we do that again virtually and in person. We have a new facility that we're opening, Holloway House and Resource Center, that will be the only resource in the tri-state area that provides housing for moms and babies. Tell me more.
That's beautiful. I just got a whole coaching session. That's dope.
And you get coaching from me too. So
that's a reminder. That's a reminder to me because I do so much, and because Headshot Happy Hour is so new to me. When people ask me that, I don't know to go. So now I just say content creator. Yeah. Tell me more.
Tell me more.
All right, I'm a photographer and I'm a filmmaker. Tell me more. All right, so I'm working on it. Yeah. But for a long time though, I would jump around like, oh, I do videos. Oh, I do this. I do.
And it sounds like you have no clue what the heck is going on. But like I said, the Social Venture Partners helped me really streamline that. 5 words. What do? Teen, parent, and family support organization, and everything falls underneath that. So I'm very specific. I stay in my lane. I'm not trying to mission creep, and no, I don't do violence, and I don't do that. Teen parents. Yeah. So one of the other things that I did when I first started is just like if I mention diapers, what kind of diapers? Pampers, right? If I mention what kind of laundry detergent, what's the best laundry detergent?
Trip.
You know what I mean? So when you hear this, my whole goal was when you hear teen parents, Rosemary's Babies.
Okay.
Nothing more. Teen parent, Rosemary's Babies. That's how quickly I want people to think about it. So the same thing is you would be like, what laundry detergent? Tide, diapers, Pampers. You know what I mean? Whatever that is, but teen parent, Rosemary's Babies Company. Because if I'm stuck in an elevator with Bill Gates and I got 10 seconds to that next floor, hey, Bill, my name is Rosemary Oglesby-Henry. I support teen parents and families in Greater Cincinnati. I love a moment of your time.
Rosemary, I really, really appreciate it. This was an awesome interview. Thank
you.
This was dope. It was very informative. It was heartfelt. And I don't know. I can't say too much more about it. But I thank you. We're gonna wrap it up. I want to make sure I get a headshot of you before I walk out of here. So that's a part of this thing. So this is Headshot Happy Hour. I'm Shondell Thomas. Thank you so much for watching, tuning in. Please share these videos, share the audio. If you are just listening, please share on whatever streaming platform you use. We thank you. We appreciate you.